HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. We're a member-supported food radio network broadcasting over 35 weekly shows live from Bushwick, Brooklyn. Join our hosts as they lead you through the world of craft brewing, behind the scenes of the restaurant industry, inside the battle over school food, and beyond. Find us at heritageradionetwork.org.
Visit a farm. Log on to escapemaker.com for more ideas on local weekend getaways and day trips to orchards, farms, wineries, breweries, and more. Get out of the city and explore while also supporting your local farmers. Log on to escapemaker.com now to get inspired and make your escape through the net.
Hey everyone, this is David Tadashore, lead engineer and studio manager of the Heritage Radio Network, and I'm reaching out to ask for your support during our end-of-year fund drive. A contribution in any amount supports our weekly programming and our mission to make the world a more equitable, sustainable, and delicious place. Plus, you'll receive exclusive member benefits like monthly playlists, discounted event tickets, party invitations, and more. So, if you like good food and you love good food radio, throw a little dough our way. Make your gift at heritageradionetwork.org/donate. Happy holidays from all of us here at Heritage Radio Network.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. You, of course, are listening to the Heritage Radio Network. We are coming to you, as always, from the back of Roberta's Pizza here in Bushwick, Brooklyn. You're listening to The Farm Report. I am your host, Erin Fairbanks, in studio for the last episode of 2016, and I couldn't be more thrilled than to be joined by a very special guest. It's so great to have you back in Bushwick. Ariane,
Thank you.
Ariane Daguin of D'Artagnan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for making the trek out on this very frosty morning. I am excited. I want to point people in the direction. We had Ariane on as a guest of our Evolutionary series, and I would definitely recommend checking that out to get a full kind of backstory on her amazing work and the trajectory of the company that she runs. Today we're going to be talking a little bit more about what's happening now and what's been going on since the last time we had you in the studio. You guys have made quite an expansion in recent years, so I wanted to get a update on how that's going. We were talking a little bit before the show. I feel like in the meat industry in particular, when folks expand, they often put down a footprint that's bigger than anything they could ever imagine needing to use, and then they get it 6 months in and they're like, it's not big enough. Are you guys experiencing that, or how are things going?
Yes, of course. We stayed in the same place for 15 years, and it was 33,000 square feet. And the last 3 Christmases and Thanksgiving have been a nightmare. You know, we didn't know where to put things. We had to put things out before things could come in. I mean, it was logistically and labor, it was so non-efficient because the space was so tight. So we decided to move, and we went from Newark to Union, New Jersey, where we have a space of 87,000 square feet, and that's 2 football fields practically. So
I was like measuring your workspace by football fields. I feel like you're like in a different category.
Well, frankly, I do it in rugby field,
yes, okay.
but we're here in the US, so and we did the same thing in Chicago. We doubled the space in Chicago, and then we opened in Houston. So in Houston, it's a little smaller. But in Chicago, it's starting to be a big space too. And so this coming Thanksgiving was our first Thanksgiving in the new space. And you know what? With all the turkeys, we filled the space the first year. So it's puzzling, you know. I mean, how are we going to do this when you have one species that takes so much space for one time a year?
Yeah.
And, but we manage, and there are things that are selling less those time of the year, so we put them more up because we expanded in square feet, but also in cubic feet.
Okay.
So we have one more, I think, a fourth floor, if you wish, a fourth pallet space up there, and so that helps also. So we're very happy to be there, though, because the offices are spacious and we're comfortable there, and the heat works. And
the heat works.
It's very nice. So it's very nice.
Well, you know, our office space is located for the radio network is located in the middle of a warehouse just around the corner. We share space with Heritage Foods USA, also a meat distributor, although on a somewhat smaller scale. But it's always so fascinating to me when you think about these businesses like that are very driven by the holidays, by events around certain times a year, where you need a lot of space in your freezers and your coolers, just moving around, but you don't need it all year round. And so that's a little tricky.
And we're not particularly the seasonality, of course. You know, people give more and eat more during the holidays, but still we have a pretty steady business thanks to retailers who carry our products all year long, and we do have products that are popular all year long. It's just that one Thanksgiving
with a turkey
thing,
the
turkey takes so much space, you know, and so that's the one.
So for folks who are not super familiar with the product line and the work that you guys do, can you give us just kind of the elevator overview?
Okay. Elevator, which floor?
Well, let's say somewhere around 20th. You know, we have a few minutes.
All right. So what we do first, we source species of animals, and so we want to be able to sell products to restaurants, retailers, and also direct to the consumer on a website. Products that come from animals that were well raised and that we can be proud of. We aim for the best quality possible. And to have the best quality possible in a meat protein business, you need to have it needs to come from animals that were well raised without stress, with respect, without any chemicals or medicines. And so what our job is to find a network of farmers or ranchers that are going to be ready to raise the animals the way we want it. We call it our specs. Mm-hmm. And basically it's at the minimum never any antibiotics from birth, which is not what, you know, when you see that on the label, antibiotic free, doesn't mean that it was from birth. It can be a program where they stop the antibiotics, you know, a certain number of days before the slaughtering. So that's not the case with us. It's really from birth. Never any growth hormones, never any medication, period. When an animal is sick in the farms we are partners with, they get out of our system. They get medication when they are sick, but we don't get them. They go out somewhere else.
So the farmer has a different outlet for those animals.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So that's the minimum. And then we also organize the logistics around it. So the live transportation from the farms to the slaughterhouse.
You guys are managing that.
It's not necessarily our trucks. It is not our trucks.
Right.
But we have specs also for it, which is a certain distance, which is a certain length of time that the driver can stop for food or whatever, with ventilation, proper space, proper equipment in the truck, so the animals don't fly around when there is a tight turn.
Sure.
And then rules, like if you need to stop for any reason, it has to be in the shadow, the ventilation has to keep going, stuff like that. And then the maximum length of time from the slaughterhouse to the farmers. And that's why local is a good word, and we thrive to be local in the markets where we are today, which is Texas, Illinois, and here in New Jersey and the tri-state area, but it is a function of where the slaughterhouse is, not us.
Right.
And that's a big dilemma, an issue here in the US today, because there are less and less slaughterhouses, and the ones that exist are bigger and bigger, so they don't accept very easily animals that have a different morphology than the ones they are used to.
Can you say that word again? Morphology.
Shape of the animal, size of the animal. And so it's difficult to find the right slaughterhouse for our pure Berkshire pork, for example, which is much bigger because it lives much longer than the regular large white. Or it's difficult to find a good slaughterhouse for our Wagyu beef because it's at least 3 years old. It ate a lot of grain at the end. It's a very sturdy and full of muscle and but also marbled fat animal. It's difficult to find a slaughterhouse for our poultry because we are sticky on one point on the poultry. We want air chilling, which means we don't want any of our, whether it's poultry or game birds, we don't want them to be dipped in a tank of water, ice water, and wait until the water gets in and actually puts weight on that animal. We hate that. Our chefs hate that too. It's much better sanitation-wise and quality-wise to air chill them. That means as soon as you process them and they are plucked, they go in a refrigerator with a high wind, very cold wind inside, so that they dry and cool in the same time. And that way the flavors are really well concentrated inside. So all those things make it very difficult to get to the whole network, the farmers, the slaughterhouse, and then the final other logistic, which is the truck from the slaughterhouse to our 3 warehouses, soon 4.
Where are you opening?
Atlanta. Yeah. And or just a little south of Atlanta. I mean, we're looking right now.
Yeah.
And then temperature loggers and specifications from our warehouse to the final destination, whether it's a retailer or a restaurant. And that's easy. That's just temperature. So we now have temperature loggers, so we know exactly the temperature of the truck at any time, and we are very watchful, very careful about that. And in each warehouse, the other rule or spec or point of quality control is the rotation. So total traceability, barcoding every case, so we know every piece of meat that's inside that case. We know where it comes from, when it arrived here, when it was processed, by who, etc.
So it's I love, so much growth has happened over the course of the business. I love thinking about you launching the brand essentially from your kitchen stovetop, making rillettes in an apartment, to now looking for your third kind of warehouse and distribution space. Fourth, sorry. kind of like tracing back that growth a little bit, what I would love to talk about from kind of like an industry standpoint is, you've definitely identified some of the challenges with relation to finding adequate slaughter facilities that are kind of set up to deal with the breeds of animals that you're looking for and the type of processing that you're looking for. But you've been able to grow. So how has that, is that a reflective of you're just finding the good people who are still doing that work? Have you seen a change in the industry? Is it coming more from the consumer side where there's just a demand so people are catching up? Like, what are the factors in that infrastructure that are allowing your business to get kind of bigger, not smaller?
It's a catch-22.
Yeah.
When it starts to work, then it calls for more growth.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning, we had to beg farmers, literally to beg them. Now they come and knock at the door, and we have to make sure they are close to another network existing or to a network of where we're going to open a warehouse. But at the beginning, we sold solely because of the quality. To chefs of restaurants who understood the quality and wanted the best. And now consumers are, thanks to the chef, are more and more, and other things, there is a nice evolution and they are more and more aware of the quality, but also the health concerns. Where does your animal come from? What did it eat? How was it raised, etc. And all those functions have an effect on your health and on your well-being. So it's not just quality anymore; it's also doing the right thing, buying the right. And so, as there has been this evolution, we've seen it in our infrastructure and our growth of sales. At the beginning, it was mainly restaurants, and today, and some fine gourmet stores. And today, it's more mainstream stores because consumers are really more and more conscious about all those things, and so they do go and they do ask for. Of course, you have to be mindful and have a price that is reachable, and so because you can always do better. You can always age longer a chicken, or you can always do something, but there is a point where you're not going to have the client anymore. So on the restaurant side, it's less true. We really are going full blast on the best quality possible. On the consumers, it's one step behind, but it's getting there.
Right.
The evolution is, and it's very, very encouraging to see because it pushes us to get better and better and better all the time. And because the volume starts to be there, it's much easier than trying to get better when you're not sure there is a market for it.
There's a market for it. Well, yeah, that was kind of what I was curious about is, you set protocols around, time and temperature and space and ventilation that you kind of outlined for us. Where do those come from? Like, where do you, like, if you sit down and you're kind of like, this is the right amount of time, or this is the right amount of air chilling, or this is the right, because obviously there's some, like the, USDA standards that are kind of like, there's rules that you have to meet, but,
right.
I'm assuming that you're obviously going beyond that, but how do you decide and then how do you experiment at the margins of like where else you might want to like push or refine those things?
So on the animal husbandry, we did not invent anything. There were things in Europe that were set up, Label Rouge or AOP, specifications. And so, for example, on our organic chicken, we'll have much more room to roam around, both outside and inside, than another organic chicken that will have exactly the same thing on the label as a definition of the USDA. The definition of the USDA on organic means sufficient space.
Right.
That's all they say in the rule. What is sufficient space? For me, sufficient space is at least 3 feet per animals. I'm not going to name any names, but for a factory farmed organic chicken, which exists today, it could be only 1 square foot per animal. By the USDA standards, organic means access to the outside. They don't mean how much of access. How many doors can you put in a barn when you have a barn of 15,000 chickens in there?
Right.
And so all those things we fight to be able to put on the label, and it's very difficult because of those USDA regulations. But we sleep better at night knowing that even with the same label definitions, our organic chickens are better because they come from small farmers who give more space to the animals, so the animals will roam around more, they will be outside more, they will have more muscle tone, and also they will live longer. And so because of that, we have a better tasting.
I feel like in the end, like all of those things, they like really only work if, as a consumer, I can taste the difference. If I'm like, oh yes, your chicken tastes different. This
Absolutely.
chicken tastes different than other chickens to me.
Yeah.
And one of the things I find frustrating sometimes in the kind of meat conversation is because you're dealing with animals, because we have, I think, a sense of empathy and caretaking and respect in that relationship. I feel like chefs and consumers there's like this line of conversation where folks are, as a person buying the meat, you're like, oh, do it because it's like a good thing to do or the right thing to do. And I just think that's like that is challenging to ask of consumers. I feel like leading with flavor first is like some people will buy because they're like, oh, this is a great thing, but they're not going to pay more for a product that's harder to get, that doesn't taste as good.
I'm with you 100%. And we've been in business for 31 years now, and that has been the mission from the beginning. Get the best quality possible. And it happens to be also the healthiest one.
Right.
But
which makes sense.
It's the best quality possible. Yeah.
How do you decide, when you were like looking to grow, going from the tri-state area to Chicago down to Texas, now looking at Atlanta, are those where the producers are those different kind of regions of the country for kind of shipping and distribution on the back end? Like how do you like make sense of where to set up shop?
No, we first look at the potential on the selling side. Mm-hmm. So wherever we don't have our own network of trucks, meaning 5 hours around those warehouses, we ship by airline or by common carrier next day. And then we have a certain volume. And when we see a pattern of volume weekly, whether it's restaurants or retailers or a combination of both, then we look at it and say, hey, maybe it's time to, there are certain numbers that trigger, maybe it's time to go to Atlanta.
Yeah, to evaluate that.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that the technology as it relates to logistics has evolved over that 30 years of like what tools are available for businesses to use and the type of kind of expertise that's out there for you to work with. Both as an employer, I mean, it's got to be different than when you started and, you're keeping track of things in like a notebook and then a computer. And then what is the logistic, what is I'm not sure how to ask this question, but like,
the technology.
Well,
and the logistics.
What's the scene right now? Like, what are the trends? What are the primary tools?
So the primary tools that we are using today are two. One is a barcoding. And the barcoding allows us to read with some kind of a gun, to read all kind of information on every shipment coming in, down to the product itself within the case. And the second one is a temperature logger, which is a little thing, disposable or not, that you can put inside a box. Just mark the box outside, and so it's there. And that little thing is able to read from 33 hours, sometimes even 72 hours of temperature. So you know what kind of abuse or not that shipment has been going through, has been gone through. So those two little technology bits have been very, very important to us. And then we're looking at the future, but I don't want to jump in something that is not ready yet, but we're looking at a lot of things for the future. And I just read somewhere that some company had, for the first time, a truck going from East Coast to West Coast without a driver in the truck.
What?
Yes. Look at it, Google it, you'll see. It's amazing and frightening in the same time.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long that's gonna take, but
right.
What's amazing is that it does exist. That's it. Somebody did it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a little bit about, I feel like more has been in the news about kind of, I feel like Uber and driverless cars. And like, I know they've been testing in Pennsylvania. And that whole idea of automation in those spaces brings up a lot of feelings for folks. We're going to let's just take a quick break to hear from our network sponsor. You guys, you're out there, you're listening to the Farm Report. We are going to be right back with some more meat talk.
And this one's called Kratom Coma by our former intern, Young Malcolm. We'll be right back.
Visit a farm. Log on to escapemaker.com for more ideas on local weekend getaways and day trips to orchards, farms, wineries, breweries, and more. Or come by Escape Maker's Blue Tent and Grow NYC's Green Markets and pick up a guide to local agritourism escapes to the Green Market's own farmers and producers. Have you listened to On the Road with Beer Sessions Radio? Escape Maker has teamed up with Heritage Radio to design a vacation package that provides a first-hand experience of the local flavors from some of New York's best craft beverage producers. Listen in and book your trip at escapemaker.com/heritage radio. No car? No problem. Escape Maker features plenty of ideas for car-free getaways, including discounts via Amtrak. Get out of the city and explore, while also supporting your local farmers. Log on to escapemaker.com now to get inspired and make your escape through the net.
All right, we are back. We are wrapping up 2016 with a little bit of meat talk. We are here in the studio with Ariane Daguin of D'Artagnan and talking about the growth of her business over the last 30 years and a little bit about what the future may look like. Potentially driverless cross-country trucks would not have been the first thing at the top of my list, but it will be. It's so funny. I feel like the things change so fast in the world. I think often like about just social media, or iPhones, these things that didn't exist in any like really significant way, like, within the last like 5 to 10 years that are now such a ubiquitous part of our life. And as a business, like this necessary positions, necessary tools. When you think about the kind of communication aspects of the work that you guys are doing, as consumers are becoming more educated, do you find like the questions that you're getting have become more nuanced, or it's just like more people are finding you because you're kind of leader in this space? Or how has the education level of the country like fed into your business? Are people more demanding of you than they used to be, or they're just excited because you exist?
They are demanding as always, but in a different kind of way. As people are getting more and more sophisticated, they are trying recipes that are really hardcore recipes. They go on Instagram and look at something that looks really, really delicious and they want to reproduce. So that's a kind of question that we have to answer all the time. And but I'm fortunate to have most of our marketing and sales crew is from a cooking background. They were all chefs at one point or another, or most of them. So it makes it a little easier and so we have to be very careful to try to be as thorough as we can on our website and social media communication, so people have all the information. But yes, there is also the odd question coming up, and we were talking about technology earlier. There was a question the other day about how do you, if you have so much access to the outside, how do you deal with predators? Mm-hmm. And that's a question that nobody asked 30 years ago. They didn't even know, that there was all they wanted to know is that the animals were free range. Yeah. They didn't even fathom that there was a fox or an eagle or a big bird. And so we have, of course it depends on the species, but it's pretty funny because there is, in the Amish community, they are allowed to use solar energy. It's technology, but it's a technology that has been allowed by the religion, by most of the churches of Amish. So they have a system where the actual door of the barn, of the poultry barn, closes when the sun goes down. And that's perfect. That makes perfect sense because chickens naturally go inside at sundown, and so a few minutes later, boom, the door closes automatically. You don't need to go out and actually close it. You can also put a system of solar energy to have the food dispenser through an auger and a system of just from high to low,
so it's gravity fed.
Gravity system to feed a little more automatically. So that has been helping on that side, and so that's very exciting to have questions like that. On the other predators during the day, there are other ways. We put nets outside so that big birds can't just dive in.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing people really don't know about is that like chicken flocks are very vulnerable to other birds of prey.
Right.
I feel like I visited a turkey farm a couple of years ago and they had a donkey on the farm because donkeys are great protectors of turkeys because for some reason large birds of prey don't like donkeys. They don't like the sound they make. They don't like them in the space. So they're like kind of, and I was like, oh, a donkey as a guard animal. Who would have thought?
Yeah. There is something that I found in France, in southwest France, that I've been trying to convince farmers to use here. It's a kite, a huge kite that looks like a big eagle, but like 20 times the size of an eagle. So even an eagle would think that this is a predator. Yeah. So and it takes some a little time for the poultry down there, the ducks or the geese or the chickens to get used to it and to figure out, no, this is not a predator. This is an everyday thing that we have, but it's very good against other predators.
So, you over the years, obviously, you've expanded and grown, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about building your team, because obviously, like you're working with more and more people. How do you kind of look to make hiring decisions for key people? What is like the vibe and the tone from like an employment standpoint? Because obviously you're doing something right. So give us your secrets.
It's no secret. The name of the company is D'Artagnan. D'Artagnan. He was one of the three musketeers. Their motto was all for one for all. That's what we do. All for one for all. And so the idea is, in theory, it's very easy. The idea is to keep accountable managers And once they are in position because we feel they are capable of doing it, then give them enough of the keys and the independence to do their thing. And so we have our president, Andy Wertheim, put in place something extraordinary that keeps accountable. We have to reach certain objectives company-wide, and then down to the territory or the manager or the department of the company, and then down to the individual, have objectives. And so everybody is together to actually get to that objective. And that's very, very good for the all for one, one for all spirit, because when somebody is not pulling their weight or is having problems or doesn't understand some parts of their job, the other ones are around, are noticing, because everything is transparent.
Right.
We have reports up to the wazoo every day, every week. And they help, because they need to help, because it's for the good of everybody that they help. And so it's a win-win for the company and for the individuals. And when, in case an individual doesn't work out, after a while, it becomes so obvious by everybody that most of the time these people leave. We don't have to fire them. They just leave because they see that they are a weight to everybody else.
The culture doesn't reinforce.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So how has your role evolved? I mean, you're obviously here in Bushwick in December chatting with me, sharing kind of the work that you guys have been doing, which I have to imagine is probably a different role than you might have played 10, 15 years ago in the middle of December. What gets you excited these days, and what are the tasks that are the top of your to-do list, and the tasks that are you're okay, I'm gonna take care of that.
So after 31 years, I'm happy to say that the tasks that are really painful to me are less and less, because
Good.
I have the leisure to give it to somebody else. So now it's about strategy. Where are we going? When? How? It's about sourcing. Where is the next network of farmers? Have we maxed out on that network of farmers here, or can we add one more farmer? Because we don't want farmers to raise more than what would be allowed by the specifications,
right.
The square feet per animal or things like that. So we have to forecast, and we have to add farmers to the group as we grow like that. But then when we open a new market like Atlanta, then we have to form a new network of farmers. We have to find a new slaughterhouse, etc., per species. And so I keep a very close eye on this, because this is the fun part for me. Except traveling in winter.
Yes.
But
you're go traveling in winter to Atlanta should be not so bad.
To Atlanta is okay, but to Missouri is not the same thing.
But I feel I end up I go to Missouri once a year to pack turkeys, actually, for Heritage Foods, and I'm I need to come back to this state when things are a little greener and more lush, because I feel I'm not getting the show me state is not showing. I'm not giving it its best opportunity to show up. Well, that seems complex, thinking about those, because all of the different species of animals is also not they grow and develop on the same time frame. I mean, chickens are moving much faster than pigs, and pigs much faster than beef, and so there's all of the if you're bringing new suppliers into the network, there's a certain amount of lead time for some species that's going to be very different for others.
For others, absolutely. And even within the chicken world, you have we have several programs. One of them is our Green Circle chicken, where we try to do something about waste, and in the same time we feed them natural thing that they would enjoy and make it better for them, higher quality again. And so around the Amish community, we find Amish markets, that will, and we make a deal with them to get the unsold vegetables at the end of the day. And those go to the farmers who have those green circle chickens. And so that's very exciting because it's a double whammy right there.
Yeah.
So, so we do things like that.
Now that makes a lot. I feel like food waste has definitely been a big topic in recent years, and rightfully so. I mean, the figures around, I hear between 30 and 40% from field to fork is being wasted in the U.S. as far as like food we produce, which is kind of a staggering number. And then you have on the flip side of that, people really talking a lot about how we need to kind of grow and produce more food. And those two things never quite make sense to me. I'm like, well, I think if we wasted like a significantly less portion of food, we would be recognizing.
And some people have different jobs that can impact differently. In our world, at D'Artagnan, what we think is that we absolutely have to do something about utilizing the whole animal. And that is not a trend. It's not the fashion of the month or the trend for the year.
You're right. Pigs have always had heads and feet.
Exactly. And a shoulder and a leg and a middle. And so if everybody was buying just bacon, we would be in trouble. So our job is to find an outlet for every part of the animal in same quantity than the most popular cut, which at the beginning was very, very difficult. And now as the volume comes in and as the evolution of the company and of the sophistication of the palate of the consumers is in, we are able more and more to do that without having just to downgrade it to the regular program and have it done something commodity oriented. So for us, it's very rewarding. To do that and to work on new ready-to-eat products or to introduce to restaurant clients a new cut in the beef that they might have overlooked, to make something good with cuts that are as good as the middle meats, but a little more difficult to cook. It's going to take a little longer. It's going to take a little braising, but it's good. My father always told me, my father had a hotel restaurant in Auch, Gascogne, in southwest France, where D'Artagnan is from. And he always told me a good chef is not, and he had 2 Michelin stars, so, he knew what he was doing. A good chef is not a cook who can cook lobster and caviar and truffles and foie gras the right way. A good chef is somebody who can take what comes in nature and do something good with all the parts. He told me that 45 years ago. So this is not a new thing. This is maybe we had forgotten and maybe we're back to it. But at D'Artagnan, we always had that in mind from the beginning.
So we are coming to the end of our time here. I mean, how do you decide what to eat for, end of year holiday meals? I mean, as someone who, you have access to all like the most exciting things, what are your kind of like go-to like celebratory things? Or is that not how you, are you like, I don't need as much meat anymore? Like,
no. Holidays are holidays. You have to celebrate in family.
If you were like, oh no, I am vegan now, I'd be like, oh man. No, I have my daughter is coming from San Francisco. My parents are coming from Auch. My niece is coming from Paris. I have a couple of friends, so we're going to have a big table, like every year. Yeah.
And so right now we are negotiating the menu with everybody involved. Mainly my daughter on one side, my father on the other, and me. We have that triangle where, so what do we do for this year? Is that going to be prime roast of Wagyu, or is it going to be a big bird? Are you in for turkey this year, or would you rather have a capon? Or because you need a big piece, that's easier for a big table. I'm pushing for wild boar. We have some beautiful wild boar coming in the whole rack. So my daughter loves venison. So we're just talking, and then of course we have to have a ham, whether it's a Mangalika ham or but it's going to be a Mangalika ham because she already put her veto on this one. So I have a stand in the kitchen where I put a ham when I know I have a lot of people at home.
Yeah.
And every time you pass by, you cut a little piece of a ham all day long, and so that's the must. That's the one thing that is all set already.
It's a good for snacking. Yeah, I think I just was chatting with my mom. We're going with prime rib this year, and then I don't know, something interesting for breakfast is my job. I'm excited to tinker a bit. There's something lovely about getting the opportunity to just cook for a large group of people too. It's not an everyday thing. So you want to do something extra special.
Yeah, and look at the soup department also, because with that kind of weather, good soup, starting it with a duck stock, a duck demi-glace or a veal demi-glace, and then expanding it with the juices of whatever you're cooking, or putting some chestnuts in there and mixing it in there. And
I'm ready to eat now. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you coming in to give us the update. And folks out there listening, like I said, definitely check out the evolutionary recording we did. You can find that by searching the Heritage Radio Network website. Great backstory on you and your work. And best of luck this holiday season.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, that is the end. That is the end of Farm Report for 2016. We are wrapping up here at the studio, but still looking to you for some support. All 34 of the Heritage Radio Network weekly programs are completely funded by listeners and supporters like you. We are in the middle of our end of year funding drive. Today through next Wednesday, December 21st, we are in a match period. So any amount you give between now and then will be doubled. So definitely drop on by www.heritageradionetwork.org/donate, or just click that beating heart and make a contribution today. Any amount helps. I might recommend becoming a member at the household level. We have some swanky new t-shirts designed by Pete Cesar, Anthony Falco. They're awesome. You can find them on our site as well. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you guys next year.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.
I